So imagine opening a 30-page document, but like every single word, every punctuation mark and paragraph has just been scrubbed into this sea of illegible gray fuzz.
This complete blur. Yeah,
Right, a total blur. Today's source material, it isn't really a text at all. It's more of a, well, a digital ghost.
that is exactly what it is.
And for you listening, if you're someone who wants the insight without drowning in all the data, today you literally cannot drown in the data because the content itself has just been obliterated.
Completely gone.
Exactly. So we are executing this forensic deep dive into a document where the body is entirely missing, and that leaves us with only a handful of digital fingerprints to analyze.
Which, I mean, the analytical position this forces us into is entirely unique.
Oh, absolutely.
Because usually we rely on the body text to dictate our entire understanding of the source material. You just read it. But stripped of that, we have to interrogate the container itself.
We have to look at the edges.
Right. We are looking at this 30-page blurred PDF, but we do have these explicit little pieces of metadata surviving on the margins.
Okay, so what exactly do we have?
Well, we have a title, I Who Have Never Known Men. We have two names, Jacqueline Harpman and Sophie McIntosh. And then we have this bizarre collision of web addresses.
The URLs.
Yeah, these shadow library URLs like zlibrary.onelib.dots, zlib.sclin, and they're embedded directly into the file name.
Right in the file name itself.
Right. But then alongside that, there's this pristine legacy publisher link, penguin.co.uk/vintage, just kind of stranded on the very last page.
Okay, let's unpack this, because trying to understand a document based solely on its metadata it's like trying to reconstruct a destroyed building by only looking at the shipping manifests for its bricks,
That is a great analogy. Yeah.
So let's start with the only coherent stream of human language we actually have here, which is the title, I Who Have Never Known Men. Just the linguistics of it feels so intensely absolute.
It really does. It operates as an unbreachable boundary. I mean, consider the definitive nature of the word never.
Right, there's no wiggle room there.
Exactly. It leaves zero room for gray areas or exceptions. And beginning with that fiercely solitary I, it basically centers the entire unseen text squarely on a single, completely isolated perspective.
It's heavy.
It is. A title is really the ultimate distillation of a creator's intent. And this one, it sort of demands that the reader step into this deeply subjective space defined by absolute deprivation from a fundamental aspect of human society.
Which is fascinating, but it contradicts the very next piece of data we have.
Right, the names.
Yeah. We have this title, Screaming Total Isolation, but attached to it are two names, Jacqueline Harpman and Sophie McIntosh.
Yep, two distinct individuals.
So if this is a singular, isolated perspective, why are there two people claiming it? How does the architecture of this file handle that relationship when there's no text to actually explain it?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the structural reality of digital metadata often just strips away hierarchical context completely.
What do you mean by hierarchical context?
So in a physical book, the typography and the layout do all the heavy lifting of explanation. You might see, by Jacqueline Harpman in a massive font on the cover.
Right.
And then maybe translated by Sophie McIntosh, or introduction in a much smaller italic font beneath it.
Oh, I see. So the physical space tells you the relationship.
Exactly. But in the raw metadata of a digital file, specifically the extensible metadata platform or the XMP standard that PDFs use authorship, is often just flattened. It becomes a basic array of strings.
So the file itself doesn't actually know who did what. It just knows they are both attached to the object as values in a code packet.
Precisely. It's the exact opposite of that nuanced physical page. The XML code simply reads the Dublin Core schema tag for creator. It just outputs DZ: creator, value 1 Hartman, value 2 McIntosh.
That is so wild, it just flattens them completely.
It does. And the system isn't necessarily flawed, it's just optimized for database searchability rather than literary nuance. I mean, a search algorithm doesn't care about the complex emotional resonance of a translation.
Right, it just wants a match.
Exactly. It only cares about returning a successful query for either string of text.
But that leaves us, as forensic readers, sitting completely in the dark. We are entirely reliant on standard formatting conventions to tell us if McIntosh is a co-author, or maybe a translator reshaping that absolute I into a new language, or even just a tour guide writing a foreword to frame the whole experience.
Yeah, without those little connecting prepositions that you'd find on a legible title page, those two names are just locked in this permanent, mysterious orbit around this incredibly heavy title.
And we just have to sit with that ambiguity.
We do. And that ambiguity really highlights how much the container dictates the meaning. The nuance of their collaboration, whatever it might actually be, is lost the exact moment the text is blurred. We're forced to rely purely on that metadata schema.
Man. Okay, let's move to the other pieces of metadata we have, because here's where it gets really interesting.
The URLs.
The web addresses, yeah. If the title and names represent the ghost of this document, these URLs are the machinery moving it around. And we have a massive technical collision happening right on this single PDF.
That's a huge collision.
Right. Because in the file name itself, we have zlibrary.smesc, onelib.sc, and zlib.skip. Then, sitting at the bottom of the final page, almost like a watermark that survived a flood, is penguin.co.uk/vintage.
We're essentially looking at the digital fingerprints of two entirely opposite beta distribution philosophies here.
Totally.
Let's just break down the mechanics impartially for a second. Penguin Vintage operates within the legacy publishing industry. Their digital infrastructure relies on rigid, legally bound metadata structures.
Like official tracking stuff.
Right, specifically a standard called ONIX for books, which tracks copyright, digital rights management, territory restrictions, pricing, all of that. It is a completely closed system built on authorization, exclusivity, and tightly controlled digital supply chains.
Okay, wait, I need to push back on the terminology here just a bit.
Sure.
Because you're contrasting Penguin with these shadow libraries, and earlier you referred to them as informal archives or ecosystems. But isn't zLibrary literally just a decentralized piracy network?
Yes.
Right, so we're looking at a file that was illicitly acquired. Why are we framing a black market peer-to-peer network with the same structural weight as a legacy publisher?
That's a fair point. The legal designation is incredibly clear. It is unauthorized distribution, no question.
Right.
But structurally, from a pure data engineering perspective, shadow libraries operate as incredibly sophisticated automated indexing projects. They don't just, blindly host files. They actively manipulate metadata to sustain their networks.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, when a file enters a network like zLibrary, automated scraping bots rewrite the file's metadata streams. They actually alter the PDF dictionary to permanently embed their own routing tags.
Okay, so it's less like a bootleg cassette tape and more like a shipping container.
Exactly.
Penguin packed the original cargo box and put their official legal manifest inside it, which is that vintage URL surviving on the last page.
Yep.
But as this container moved through the digital black market, automated dock workers basically slapped new barcodes, new routing numbers, and shadow library tags all over the exterior of the file.
That shipping container analogy illustrates the mechanics perfectly. This PDF is essentially a fossil record of its own digital migration.
That is so cool to think about.
It is. Someone purchased a legitimate digital copy from Penguin's closed ecosystem. They then utilized specialized software to strip the digital rights management, the DRM encryption, and uploaded the raw text into the decentralized shadow server.
And then the server took over.
Right. The moment it hit that server, the automated systems injected the zlib and onelib tags directly into the file name.
Basically to ensure that wherever this file traveled on the internet, it acted as a billboard for the network that hosted it.
Exactly. And take that a step further. Look at the specific domain extensions in those tags. They aren't .com or .org.
Right.
They are .arsk.
Wait, Slovakia.
Correct. Shadow libraries operate in this constant, intense game of cat and mouse with international domain registries and law enforcement.
So they have to keep moving.
Exactly. When a primary domain is seized by authorities, the network automatically relies on mirrors. These duplicate databases hosted in jurisdictions with completely different legal frameworks, or at least slower response times for intellectual property takedown.
Oh, wow.
So that .scag is a literal coordinate of evasion permanently starred into the file name.
And the crazy thing is, neither Penguin nor the Shadow Library actually wrote the words inside the container.
No, not at all.
The authors, Harpman and McIntosh, are just caught in the middle of this massive infrastructure war between legacy copyright enforcement and decentralized piracy. It fundamentally changes how you view a download,
It really does.
When we click a link, we aren't just downloading a narrative, we are downloading a ledger of digital transactions, server routing decisions, and automated asset stripping.
Consider the mechanics of that transaction history for a second. Every time that file is mirrored across those different domains, the metadata is constantly shifting to evade detection while still trying to remain searchable for the actual users.
Right.
Which brings us to the visual anomaly of the document itself. The 30 pages of unreadable horizontal gray fuzz.
Yeah, so what does this all mean? We have this incredible technical collision happening invisibly in the file structure, but the human-facing part, the actual pages, are totally useless.
Completely illegible.
So if this is a digital arms race, why is the text blurred? Like, why wouldn't it just be redacted with solid black bars if someone wanted to hide it?
That is a great question. And the distinction between redaction and blurring is absolutely critical in digital forensics.
Okay.
Redaction, solid black blocks,
Mm.
is an act of human censorship.
Right, like an old FBI file or something.
Exactly. It implies state secrets, privacy protections, or legally sensitive information being actively hidden by a human editor. But blurring, however, is frequently a byproduct of machine evasion or systemic digital degradation.
Like camouflage against automated systems?
Obfuscation is probably a more accurate term, but yes. Legacy publishers employ these automated copyright bots that constantly crawl the open web and peer-to-peer networks.
Looking for stolen books.
Exactly. And these bots do not read like humans do. They use optical character recognition, or OCR, combined with cryptographic hash matching.
Okay, hold on. What is a hash exactly?
Think of a hash as a unique digital fingerprint of a file's data. If the bot's OCR scans a sequence of words that matches the proprietary text of Penguin Vintage, it identifies the hash and instantly issues an automated Digital Millennium Copyright Act takedown.
Okay, so if I'm tracking the mechanics here, by severely blurring the text, whoever manipulated this file was trying to break the OCR process.
That's the theory, yeah.
Because the bots can't recognize the letters, which means they can't match the cryptographic hash, meaning the file avoids the automated takedown and stays online longer.
That is the most probable mechanical explanation. But in doing so, they blurred it so heavily that the human-readable content was destroyed entirely.
It's like collateral damage.
It really is. It's a glitch in the automated copyright wars.
Yeah.
The structural reality is that in this specific digital pipeline, the human reader became completely secondary to the machine reader.
Oh.
Yeah, the bots do not care about the text's narrative of isolation. They care only about the hash match. And to survive the bot, the file basically had to sacrifice its actual content, leaving only the machine-readable metadata in the file name and the margins.
That is a profoundly dystopian mechanical reality.
It is pretty bleak.
The architecture holding the information actively destroyed the information to protect the container. And it really forces us to realize how much we are already conditioned to rely on that container anyway.
What do you mean?
Well, think about the philosophy of information overload we all deal with every day. When the sheer volume of data in our daily feeds becomes functionally blurred by how fast we have to scroll through it, what do we actually do?
We skim.
We fall back on the exact same things surviving on this PDF. We rely entirely on the metadata.
Ah, I see. Yes, the metadata becomes the media.
Exactly.
When you scroll past an article on your feed, complex algorithmic sorting has already prioritized it and served it to you based entirely on invisible tags. When human bandwidth is overwhelmed, we essentially read like the bots do.
We really do. We look at the headline, we look at the tags, we check the domain name to see if it's a source we trust.
Yep. In a world of infinite blurred text, the framing devices are the only things we can clearly process.
And the framing dictates the reality. I mean, if this exact same 30 pages of blurred text had the domain cia.gov at the bottom and the title was Operation Redbird, we would look at the gray fuzz and assume it was some violent historical record hiding state secrets.
Absolutely. But because the surviving metadata points to Penguin Vintage and Z Library, and the title is I Who Have Never Known Men, you read the blur entirely differently.
It changes everything.
Right, the blur takes on a literary resonance. It feels like a narrative statement about isolation or the degradation of memory, even though we just established it's likely the mechanical wreckage of an anti-piracy measure. The architecture surrounding a piece of information tells you exactly how you are supposed to feel about the information itself.
It is incredible to think about what we've mapped out here today. I mean, we started this session with what basically looked like digital garbage.
A completely broken file.
Yeah, a useless, ruined PDF. But by treating it strictly as a forensic artifact, by looking closely at just the explicit metadata provided, we've extracted this massive understanding of digital culture.
We really have.
From the tension between a solitary title and the flat metadata array of dual authors, to this intense mechanical clash between a decentralized piracy domain and a legacy publisher imprint.
We essentially reverse engineer the entire ecosystem of the file, the economic models behind it, the technical mechanisms of its survival, and we did all of that without ever needing to read a single sentence of the actual text.
Which brings us back to the core mission of this deep dive. For you, the listener, the practical application of this forensic exercise is immediate.
It really is.
The next time you download a file or open a link or even just look at a search result on your phone, don't just look at the content, look at the architecture.
Check the tags.
Right. Look at the URL structure, the file extensions, all of it. Before you even read the first paragraph, ask yourself, what story is the container trying to tell me? How is the architecture trying to manipulate my perception? Because the invisible data is never neutral. It tells a story of its own.
And to push that idea to its absolute limit, I want to leave you with a final thought experiment to mull over today.
Okay, let's hear it.
So we've seen how much historical and mechanical meaning can be extracted from just a title and a few web addresses, right?
Right.
Imagine a far future digital catastrophe, a massive solar flare, or maybe a cascading server failure that wipes out the actual readable text of all our global archives, leaving only the digital card catalogs intact.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, leaving only the file names, the routing tags, and the URLs of where things used to be stored.
So just the metadata.
Just the metadata. If future historians found the digital ruins of our society and all they had left was a solitary title like I Who Have Never Known Men, caught in an invisible war between a defunct corporate domain and a rogue Slovakian server.
That is wild.
What kind of history would they write about us? What would they deduce about our values, our isolation, and our technology if our entire cultural legacy was reduced to the shipping labels we left behind?